we have the maestro here. He has been making the movies, both as a director and as an actor. And now Robert is kind of following in his kind of footsteps, being an actor, and now he's becoming a filmmaker as well.
I think one of the things that propels me as a director is not being quite sure how to do something. The challenge of how to do it is part of what makes me want to do it. For example, the last picture show, I had no idea what people in Texas were like. I'd never been to Texas. I grew up in New York. But the very fact that I didn't know anything about it propelled me, to do it. Because I feel that you can do anything in movies, but sometimes I don't know how to do it. And when I don't know how to do it, that's interesting to me. I was very influenced by a number of filmmakers. Probably the most by Howard Hawks and Orson Welles, and Hitchcock, Renoir, Lubitsch. But I liked their films, and if I liked the films, I was influenced by them because I was inspired by it. I found that Tom Petty, and I really like him a lot, and I really enjoyed doing this documentary with Tom. But I found in many cases that he and I shared, for example, certain affection for some filmmakers. He likes Howard Hawks. He and I both love Rio Bravo. So we had that in common. But I also noticed there were many parallels between music making and filmmaking. And many times he would say something and I'd say, well, that's the same thing in movies. Different, of course, but similar, the same idea. So, and that was another example of something I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to make a documentary about a rock and roll artist. I had no idea. But they came to me and asked me because Tom likes some of my pictures. So I thought, well, I don't know how to do it. And so that was why I did it. It turned out well, thank heaven, but it was difficult. What was interesting about that film was that I had an idea very early on how it should be done, how it should look. But between the idea of how it should look, and it's exactly the way the film looks now. But to get to that took 2 years.
Of work with the actors. Maybe we can start from Peter. From the script, from the reading of the script together, I don't know, how do you work with the actors when before starting a movie and during the movie itself? I'm thinking about the last picture show. We can see some kind of dico in italiano, un po' di recitazione anche improvvisata.
Kind of improvised acting.
Is there?
Is it
and
true?
How did you work with the actors in the 70s? And how would you work now with the people in your movies?
Well, it's very complicated, but to make it simple. Usually on the last picture show, for example, we rehearsed for 2 weeks. We actually rehearsed for 1 week in Los Angeles and then 1 week in Texas. I don't do that now. I do like to have a rehearsal, but not so long. 2 weeks is too long. I like maybe a week. And I don't rehearse the full day either. Rehearsals for me now, and to a degree then, but more so then, in those days, I really wanted to get a sense of how the scene would play, to get an idea of how they were going to do it, where I was going to put the camera. It was like getting a little bit of a head start on the project. I worked very closely with the actors. I don't improvise much, particularly when you have such good dialogue as Larry McMurtry writes very good dialogue. You can't improvise dialogue that good. I have in later years, on a film like They All Laughed, for example, we didn't so much as improvise, but I didn't give the actors the lines until just before we made the scene, because I didn't know what they were going to be. We would sometimes write it just before we would do it, or I'd say, why don't you say this and you say this, and we'd throw it around, and very, very fresh. But every film is different. Every film is different. For example, Noise is Off, which is a film I enjoyed making. There was a very, very solid play. It was a hit play. Well, I'm not going to change that, you know. The trick is to try to make it fresh, as though it didn't happen before. I often yell out, okay, this never happened before. This never happened. It's for the first time, particularly when we're in the 5th or 6th take. So, okay, we haven't done this. But I work very closely with the actors. Orson Welles once said a very interesting thing. He said, if it sounds right, it'll probably look right, which was an interesting point. And I often hear how I think the dialogue should sound. And sometimes I'll just tell the actor, try it like this. Some actors don't like that, but most of them don't mind. Because I don't mean for them to do it exactly the way I say it, but to give them an idea of something. Although sometimes I do mean it exactly that way. Because, you know, you hit the wrong word, it could be wrong. I remember there's one line in What's Up, Doc, where I told Barbara exactly how I wanted her to play it. Same thing with Ryan. But there was one line, she got stubborn, and she would not say it the way I told her to say it. No, she says, it's funny. I said, it won't get a laugh. And sure enough, it never got a laugh. And I know if she'd said it the other way, it would have gotten a laugh. Sometimes that only happened once.
Once in all your career?
Yeah.
Ma devo dire che è molto...
I'm going to make a film. I think the next film is based on a play called Killer Joe, which was done in New York some years ago. It's a rather dark comedy, drama, suspense story about do you know what a trailer is? You know what a trailer? You live in a trailer? What do they call that?
Mobile casa.
No, un roulotte. We call it roulotte.
So it's a family who lives in a trailer who plans to murder one of the mother to get insurance. It's very dark. Everything goes wrong. It's sort of dark, funny, sexy, strange. Very well written. We're casting that right now, so I think we'll shoot. I hope to shoot that January, February, and and then I have a comedy which Robert has read called Squirrels to the Nuts. Usually you say nuts to the squirrels, but this is Squirrels to the Nuts, and that's a complete farce. It's a screwball comedy set in New York, almost impossible to describe what it's like.
Very, very funny.
It's quite funny.
Hysterical. And it's